Hello, everyone. It's your girl, Miracle Sims, and you're watching God, Sex, and Love. Tonight, we're going to be chatting with Mr. Jason Skeesick. So, if you're ready to learn more about him, then stay tuned. That I'm not the type of girl that goes around and fools around. Think I'm so done with that crazy part of my past. So don't get so old to ask, cause I won't go there. So be aware, yeah. I'm good, but I bet you wishing I would have a one night affair. Welcome back to God, Sex, and Love. I am here with Mr. Jason Skeesick. How you doing, sir?
Miracle, it's a pleasure to be here. I am so excited to be with you. And you're the first person I've met with such a beautiful name, with Miracle. That's such a pretty name.
Thank you
Yeah.
kindly. Look, shout out to Mama. I think you are the first Skeesick I've ever come across
That's
in life.
probably true. Yeah, that's probably true. It's a Native American name that was changed over years. My dad's side of the family is Native American, and it came from, I think, Skeesuck, if I'm correct. Yeah, and then at some point got switched over, but here we are. And there's not a lot of us. If you meet a Skeesick, especially a Jason Skeesick, I'm the only one so far.
Well, there you go. Well, I'm honored to have met you.
Indeed.
Well, I want to first welcome you to God, Sex, and Love. Thank you so much for visiting us tonight. I can't wait to learn more about you and your endeavors. So if you could just share with us where you are and then a little bit about yourself.
Of course. So my name's Jason Skeesick. I'm coming to you from the beautiful Indiana Dunes National Park. So we're about 45 minutes outside of Chicago. I've spent most of my life growing up outside of Chicago and have spent the last 15 years living in Chicago until my wife Donna and I decided to move here. While I was there, I was running a gym that still exists, although I sold most of my portion, called Bucktown CrossFit. So that gym is in Bucktown in Chicago. And then previous to that, I was in the United States Army, did a couple of deployments in that. And then beyond that, I was a kid. So here I am. And what I primarily focus on these days is helping people like me, helping entrepreneurs like me to impact the world with their vision, because that was such an important thing in my life. And I was able to overcome some things that I think a lot of people struggle with. And so that's what I spend my time doing. I spend my time either podcasting with wonderful hosts like yourself, or talking to entrepreneurs who are trying to, get over the hump and really make an impact on the world.
That's awesome. Well, first, let me say, of course, thank you for your service, sir. Really greatly appreciate it.
Well, Miracle, I think your freedom is worth it. So I appreciate that. Yeah.
Well, yes, please. But look, don't get me started. But like, I kind of want to ask you, and this might be, I don't know, might be
Bring it on, girl.
Can't talk about this. This is classified information. I just kind of want to like, what do you think of things now? I mean, because are you no longer in service anymore and whatnot, right? So
no, yeah. So while I was in the military, I had a broad experience. And when I went into the military, I was kind of lost. I was a smart kid. I had been athletic and done okay in school, but I just didn't really have a direction. And so I asked a friend of mine. I said, "What is the best job that I can get?" I showed him like the whole pamphlet of all the books, and he gave me a couple of options. And the one that I ended up picking was called a network switching systems engineer. Right? And sounds pretty fancy. Let me tell you what a network engineer switching systems does in the military. They give you a big green rubberized box with one button, and you push that box if the phone or the internet goes out. And then the rest of the time, they hand you a pickaxe or a shovel, and you dig holes, you pull cable, and you work your butt off on the side of the road in 120-degree weather. So that was my experience in the military. I also did get to live in Germany for 2 years, which was really cool. I got to be stationed in Germany, where I got to travel and see the world. I made unbelievable relationships. And then as far as the question of where I see things right now, from a military perspective, it's really hard everything changes so quickly. And so it's hard to really know anything that I could give you any kind of commentary on, but certainly it feels like technology has made it easier for us to be divided. I wouldn't say that it's exactly dividing us, but I would say it's made it easier for us to be distant from our common humans, right? And so hopefully, my optimism would say hopefully we can incorporate that into culture instead of letting it divide our culture, which is kind of what it's been doing for the past few years. But I don't know. I'm optimistic, but I think it's going to take. But even optimism takes hard work. So doing the best we can to look people in the eye and have conversations like the one we're having now. I think this is a great example of technology making us better. Because Miracle, you and I wouldn't be able to have this conversation 15 years ago, certainly not as seamlessly, certainly not for as many people to see. And we wouldn't have the ability to promote it through things like social media or websites or, podcast servers. But there's definitely a darker side of the coin, right?
Oh man, look, you've just said a mouthful of so many things that we could just go from all of the things you just shared just now. I mean, because yes, I do also say that, technology seems to be a blessing and a curse. It's like, again, there's so many beautiful things, like, again, this conversation and things like that is able to happen. But then on the flip side, like you said, there is a darker side. And then I guess, like, the reason I asked you that question is because I feel like all around me, our freedoms are like slowly kind of trying to be taken away.
Yeah.
That's my observation. I don't know. As a military person, do you see it that way as well? Or you're like,
I mean, for starters, I think that's a very valid opinion. And I think it's one that's shared by many. So I hear your voice go up and I hear you like a little like, I don't know, maybe. Yes. Right. I mean, yes, it feels that way. I think it really breaks down. This is not my area of expertise, but I certainly have an opinion just like everybody else. I think it really comes down to one of two things. And there's some people that value freedom over safety. And I think there's some people that value safety over freedom. And the people who value freedom over safety, which I am one, are less likely to accept things like reduction of freedoms of speech. They're less likely to reduce, the right to control, to bear arms. They're less likely. They want the word is sovereignty, right? They want to be personally sovereign, like a country would be. And so unless they are aggressing on somebody else, they don't want anybody to tell them what they should do, think, feel, dress, say, however. And by the way, this isn't to say that my point of view is the only right one. I think the other side of that coin would be people that believe that safety is worth trading some freedom for. Now, whether or not they would say it that way, I can't, say. But to me, I think that's an admirable position. I think it comes from a place most of the time of love, wanting people to be safe and viewing the collective potentially as more valuable and the safety of the collective as more valuable than the sovereignty of the individual. I just don't agree with that. And so, that's sort of my position on it. I think, I've owned a business, a community business in Chicago for 12 years. And I'd say, unsurprisingly, I disagreed on a lot of things with the people that were in my community. And I love those people. And I love that they have the freedom to have their differing opinions and speak out loudly when they have things that they're unhappy about or that they want to celebrate or that they want to protest about or, again, celebrate and march down the street for. And so for me, this is not a game that only has one winner. This is a game that if we're all respectful of each other and each other's rights, that this should be a game that we can all win.
I agree. I agree with you wholeheartedly. I know, even hearing that you are either in Chicago or around Chicago, I hear a lot of things. I've never been there yet. Maybe one day I'll go or something like that. But I always don't sound good about Chicago. It don't sound like it sounds like a dangerous place. Like, me over here in Atlanta, but I mean, I'm sure there's lots of things that get said about Atlanta as well.
Let me tell you, I was going to say, that's the funny thing is that I could tell you right now that if you drop me in Atlanta, I'd be a little bit nervous. You drop me in Chicago, I'm not nervous. I think it's always going to be that way. I think it's sort of evolved in us to just be a little bit I mean, you could draw all sorts of parallels to where this leads, right? Whether it's individually, you are attracted to people that look and act like you, or locally, you're attracted to people that are in your community where you kind of know the vibe and the feeling or whatever. Because I can tell you right now, Germany's not more dangerous. Even Iraq at the country level, not that dangerous. I've been all over the world, and I've felt more in danger in every place that I visited than I do in Chicago, where people get murdered, right? And so I just think that's a function of like you're more comfortable in your own surroundings, in your own comfortable communities, you know?
Yeah. Very interesting. Definitely. Man, okay, there was something else that you mentioned as well. So I know you mentioned that you live in Chicago, you mentioned about the military, you mentioned about your gym, your entrepreneurial endeavors. Oh, that was something I was going to ask you about. Oh, well, see, this is what happens.
That's okay.
I'm not
We're
one of
just
those.
here having a good conversation. It's funny because I interview folks too, and I always think it's like I can only hold like one or two ideas, and as the person is talking, I have to like discard the idea because it's like passed on, and then I got to pick up another one, and so it's like I can only hold one or two at any given time. So I understand exactly how you feel.
Yeah. So my apologies on me. Hopefully, I don't do that too much today. But yeah. I definitely. I got a little. Now I never did just sign up for the military, but I was close. I was considering for a split second. I'll tell you about it. So long story short, I was working in the gym in college, and I was an RA. I did all that stuff in college, whatever. Cool. And so I'm just sitting there in the gym, checking people in, whatever. And here comes one of the military guys. He's like, "Oh, I want to come in and talk to people," recruiter, I guess. Yeah. And I'm like, "Oh yeah, you can go on in and talk to people, fine, He's like, "Well, actually, would you want to be part of the military?" I'm like, not necessarily. My major's in theater. Y'all probably got nothing that I can do. But then he mentioned soldier shows. Have you heard of these?
Oh, yeah.
Or did he just tell me something? Like, I feel like he kind of just told me something.
The Army is so big that you can. There's a guy that lives in my neighborhood. He's the father of one of my friends. They live in a really nice place here, and he was in the Army band. I think he played bass and tuba, which I think is interesting because it's the same sound but a different instrument. What was it? Was it standing bass and drums or standing bass and tuba? I don't recall. But either way, you can be a wrestler. You can be, there's people that are fighters. Tim Kennedy was a professional fighter while he was in the military. There's people that are, accountants and lawyers and doctors, of course. I mean, the Army is just so big that that you can kind of do anything in it. And I could see you being a really good. You're so expressive and charismatic. I think you'd be an awesome. I don't know what you would call that soldier, but you would have done great, especially with the eyebrows. I don't know if those are in reds though. I think you might have to.
The people eyebrows. Like, yeah. No, I'm saying I'm just really trying to think because I don't know what a soldier show would have been, entailed, but I did hear something about the musical, and I don't play any instruments, so I think he was just trying to get me in there because I don't know anything that I would have been able to do. Yeah. And then I had a friend of mine that was in the military. He's in another branch. So sorry, I know there's things between y'all. Yeah. But he kind of was like, maybe not that branch type of thing. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't know what
he was in the Navy or the Air Force, though, right?
You know what? I can't remember. I think he might have did the Army too, but am I starting something? Oh.
No, you're good. You're good.
But he kind of was like, I don't know if it's because I'm a woman or whatever the case is, but he was thinking that Army wouldn't be good for.
Well, Army is the quality of living is not as good. Navy and Air Force is more like a regular job, and that's not to discriminate against them, but like it's more like a regular job. The facilities are nicer. It's a smaller group of people. There's more technology jobs and things like that. And he's probably right. We as Army guys, we always knew if you see an Air Force unit or a Navy unit, there's going to be pretty girls. If you're in the Army and the Marines, it's less of that. Shout out to my beautiful soldiers out there. But for sure, we would enjoy being stationed near Air Force and Navy. And they would actually give them. So we all go in the same place, right? If a Navy person or an Air Force person had to go to an Army base, either to live or to go to a school or something, they actually got paid extra because the living was worse. So they would give them like a stipend extra, because they knew that they were living in squalor with us soldiers.
That's interesting,
Yeah.
man. Like military life. I know my husband, he's in the Marine Corps. And so, you
Wow.
know, him and his, well, not my father-in-law, he was in the military as well. So every now and then, like on family functions, we're watching these military movies, and it's like,
Yeah.
I feel like they're just reminiscing. I'm like, y'all miss it. What's going on? But
Yeah.
I'm so out of the loop because I never did any of that type of stuff. But
Yeah.
hey, again, thank all of y'all for your services and all the branches. We appreciate all of you. At least I do. I appreciate
thank
all of
you.
y'all.
Yeah.
But anywho, let's get out of the military. I know you probably like, Miracle, look, I got stuff to talk about, business endeavors and all that. I love what you were saying about your the coaching that you do and whatnot, and that you kind of coaching people to, I don't want to misquote how you said it, because you were like to, in some ways, like enhance their vision or bring their vision to
Yeah.
life or something along
Yeah.
that lines.
Yeah, I mean, so I think like anybody, I mean, you're a small business owner. This podcast is a business, right? And you didn't start it because you didn't start it. It's not that you didn't start it for money, but you started it because this was something that was an attractive idea to you, right? And I'm putting words in your mouth here, but you had an idea of the world as it could be, and you probably couldn't help but take action, right? It's one of those things where God, sex, and love, that probably came to you, or you thought about it over time, and maybe you liked the medium of podcasting, the art form, and you had a message that you wanted to spread. Well, for most businesses, that's about how it goes for them as well. Let's say you're a gym owner, or you're a chiropractor, or you're a tax attorney, or you're a writer, or whatever it may be. But the problem is this: the thing that gets you from point 0 to point 1, that gets you to start the business, is you're an action taker. You can run through brick walls. You can wear all the different hats. You can run through brick walls. You can do everything. But the problem is we only have 24 hours in a day. And as our businesses start to find some success and grow, it actually starts to hurt us if we try to do everything. It starts to actually put a hindrance on us. It starts to actually limit the ability for us to scale our message to the world. And so I was that guy. I was the guy that had started a gym as a side project with some friends and was very, very good up until the limits of where it felt impossible to do more. And so the thing that I tell people, Miracle, is if something feels impossible and you're trying hard, it's probably impossible. And so what we have to do is we have to let go of some of those skills that got us to where we are in order to gain those skills that'll get us to the next level. Does that make sense so far?
It does. Yes, sir,
Yeah.
it does. I think for me, in my process thus far, what I'm learned is the whole outsourcing thing has just been such a blessing to me. I'm like,
Yes.
okay, boom, I can get this person to do this, get this other person to do that. I know we're just talking about the editor and stuff. Shout out to Boomer. Hey, Boomer.
Hey, Boomer.
Greatly appreciate these individuals that, I've been blessed to be able to continue to work with. I want to say since 2021, like 2020 is when I started this.
Wow.
Look, I don't know what happened with you in 2020, but I mean, it seems like a lot of people had these life-changing things happening, whatnot. But part of that was me actually kicking off this idea that had been on my heart and mind for years. And now here I am, talking to people around the world. But anywho, basically, yeah, like, again, trying to do everything alone. I was so used to doing things alone over the years, but it's just been such a blessing to have people to help, and I see much more being able to get more and more done. So is that like kind of what you're sharing with people as well, or is it beyond
definitely.
that?
Well, let's use an example. I mean, if you didn't have to promote the podcast, if you didn't have to edit it, if you didn't have to do any of the legwork behind it, if you just had to turn on record and have these conversations, 2 questions. Number 1, do you think that would drain your energy, or do you think it would give you energy? And because for me, I get energy from this conversation. I'm going to get off of this call buzzing like a bee, right? And then number 2, if I didn't have to worry about all the other stuff, if I could just show up, well, I would do 7 of these a week probably. I would do these every single day. And I could just tell from your energy, you're probably the same way. And so just using this as an example, certainly I work with people that aren't podcasters. In fact, I haven't worked with anybody that's a podcaster primarily. But it's just the idea of being able to focus on your unique genius, on the things that give you energy. Because Miracle, there's people out there, Boomer may be one of them, where he would way rather be at a terminal editing a podcast than ever be on the business end of a camera and a microphone. Whereas you and I don't feel that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It
And
does.
so, yeah, and so whether it's your accountant or the people that are coaching your, spin classes or your personal trainers or your dietitians or your anybody's, your drivers, it doesn't matter. These are people you try to energize these roles with people who are energized by the role, who get energy from doing that work. And so, I worked for a bank for a few years. I know people that get energy from solving problems. They read through the contract to find the details, and then they check the numbers in the spreadsheet and make sure everything balances out. That sounds like a slow march toward death for me, but it sounds like a great, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday for the folks I'm thinking of. And so what I've found is, if we just put time into understanding the foundation of our business and then build some simple frameworks to scale the magic between our ears out to a team, we can just be way more effective with our mission and with our business. And it's funny because when you get to that point, it actually feels easy. Because I think winning is simple. That's actually our hashtag, is winning is simple. It's not easy, but it is simple. It's very simple. You just need to understand your North Star, understand exactly what guides you, and understand exactly what it is that makes you and your business great, and be able to train that to a team.
I love it. I'm all for it. I definitely see the benefits of that. And it's funny, I was talking about something like that on the Daily Inspiration this morning, which is be in the past when people see this. But either way, I was still kind of talking about like people being in positions and enjoying what they do and whatnot. And you can, feel that, see that, and it works. It works to really put people in the right positions. And then at the same time too, acknowledge that all positions matter. All, no is higher than the other per se in regards to like the way you look at it. I feel like everybody's role is important.
Totally.
Like you just mentioned there. So what got you into the coaching aspect then in doing this side of the business endeavors that you've been doing?
I think it started so naturally. Have you ever read Malcolm Gladwell's Tipping Point? Have you heard of that book?
Sounds familiar, but I don't.
It was a pretty popular book maybe 10 years ago, and he talks about people called mavens. And mavens are people where, when they get an Apple Watch and it makes their life better, they tell everybody they know, and you could actually track it. Like, I bet you I've sold 50 Apple Watches with no money, just because I'm walking around saying, oh, I love how my Apple Watch does this. I love how my Apple Watch does that. I love how this works. The shoes that I wear, whatever. I've always been somebody where when I find something that makes my life better, it's just so natural for me to tell other people about it, which makes me sort of like a teacher, right? And or somebody that likes to share the things that they're passionate about. Mm-hmm. So that combined with starting a gym, I started a gym because I was so passionate about CrossFit. And, two other guys and I, both veterans, started this small CrossFit gym. And it was the same thing. I learned that I could take the things that had changed my life for the better, and I could help to guide people towards those things that can make their lives better. Mm-hmm. Well, the fitness journey usually goes like this. Fitness changes your life. So then you train some folks in your garage. Now you can change the lives of 2, 5, 10 people, right? Great. And then at some point you go, okay, well, let's get a lease. Let's have some legal documents involved. And now you maybe can help 100 people, 200 people, maybe if you're really lucky, 500 people, right? But at a certain point, I realized a few years ago that I was the leader of this community gym tribe. But if I coached and I had been successful at it, if I helped other leaders of gym tribes, well, now maybe instead of impacting 300 or 400 people, maybe I can impact 3,000 or 4,000 people. And then with COVID, helping folks through that very difficult time for fitness, then the idea became, can I impact even more people outside of fitness by taking some of these techniques, these strategies, and this understanding of business that I've earned over the years, and helping people in other similar kind of tribal community type businesses. And so now the hope between a free podcast and a great coaching cohort that I have called Dynasty Defined, my goal is to impact thousands or even millions of people, using these simple ideas. So for me, it's all about scale and tribe and community.
Hey, well, it sounds like it's going great. I mean, look, you sold it to me already. Sounds
That's
good.
terrific.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
I know you. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you reached out to me, right? You were like, we met on Podmatch, and you're like, "Hey, you want to be X, Y, and
Yeah.
Z." And so I would love to know, like, when you saw GSL, right? You
Yeah.
was like, you saw Guys X 11. You was like, I want to go in there and talk. Like, did you have anything in mind that you
I
wanted to
think
kind of?
it was you. I think because so for me, it's all about the conversation. So candidly, professionally, I don't deal with religion. I don't deal with sex or deal with love. But personally, I certainly do. But frankly, when I'm choosing the places that I want to go and have conversations, because for me right now, it's all about just making the world aware that I exist and what I do. And so for me, it's much more interesting to have a great conversation, as we are clearly doing, and that gives me energy and I enjoy doing, than maybe there's some bigger show that I could be on at the moment where the guy or gal is not interesting or maybe isn't listening. We're in a conversation right now.
Yeah.
And I know you've been on some shows or you've had some folks on where they're reading off of a piece of paper in their mind or maybe literally, and they don't really engage in what you would call like a dialogue. And so, I'm grateful to you. And honestly, you did a good job of naming your show because I know exactly what 3 things might come up during this conversation.
Well, no, see, the funny thing, that's the funny thing too. I mean, I just threw it out there just to see if you did want to talk about any of this. And you still can if you want to.
Yeah, of course.
But it's not necessarily even just all about that. And I think that's the beauty of GSL and what I've created at this point. Because I kind of feel like, for me, it was more so about having a place to be free to talk about these things, But the GSL itself we talk about everything. Like, we talked about everything from, like, we had panel discussions with politics and all kinds of different things. So, and I like that because I feel like, now this is just me, I don't know if we let the Deuce going to come out now because he might disagree. Yeah. I don't know.
Never happened.
But for me, I feel like God should be incorporated in every aspect of your life, including these things. And so I feel like the content that we create on GSL kind of shows like what that looks like, if that makes any sense. Like, when I share daily inspiration, I'm going to be sharing like, whatever I studied that morning in the Bible, but I come up with the most random. Well, it's not me. I feel like the most random topics come to me in the mornings and whatnot when I'm doing it. And I'm like, Lord, what is that? Okay. And then next thing I know, I do my study and I, find these different topics in the Bible, and it could be the most random thing. I know I made this journal, and when I did my little promo for the journal, I just kind of threw it out there, but I'm serious. Like, if, for example, I was like, hey, if you think about hamburgers in the morning, still look it up, define it. You never know what you find in the Bible centered around.
Yeah.
Like, you might not find hamburgers, right? But you'll find something about a cow or a cow or something, you know what I mean? And that could be, it's just been very interesting, the whole journey. So not only have I shared that, but then I went on a little fitness journey. Now, I ain't did so much recently, but there was a time when I was on this little fitness journey, and I call that accountability. And there's this guy that was kind of coaching me, along, and I just kind of filmed that process as well. And it was like Faith and Fitness put together. So I mean, I feel like, that's where I come from with what I'm doing and whatnot. But I'm glad that you came, and I'm glad
to be here. Do you know what I find? You know what I find interesting about the title of your show? As you're talking, it just occurred to me. I'm an entrepreneur. I solve problems for a living, right? That's what entrepreneurs do. We say like, all right, there's an empty hill. What are we going to put on that hill? We're going to put a business, and there's going to be a parking lot, and that's what the sign is going to be. And this is the type of business it's going to be. And here's who's going to work there. And this is the marketing and da, 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 da. You know what I don't have any logical or scientific answers for, Miracle? God, sex, and love. I can answer anything else. I really can. Even politics, which I think is convoluted and complicated, I think you probably could sit down and say, like, this is exactly how I feel about every issue politically. This is exactly how I feel about business. This is exactly how I feel about finance. But when it comes to things like religion, things like sex, and things like love and romance, relationships, right? Sometimes those things aren't logical, and I don't have answers, or even like there are even things that I don't try to have answers for, almost, where it's almost just like I'm not like I guess what I'm sort of getting at is I'm not a particularly faith-based person in the way that I go through the world, if that makes sense. I want to have answers. I want to know exactly why it is I'm doing something. I want the scaffolding to be there under these ideas. But when it comes to those 3 topics, it's interesting that I can just look up and go like, I don't know.
It's like, I don't
Yeah.
know. Well, one, I guess I want to thank you for being confirmation for me today then. Because I mean, I've been kind of, if I'm honest, and I was honest this morning on the daily inspiration, but here I am again, being honest with you. That I've been kind of struggling with, not the name, like, but the fact that I feel like I got to keep defending it, if that makes any sense. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like, it hasn't happened too much, but because it's happened, now it's like on my radar and now I notice when it happens, if that makes any sense. Like this was literally just me. This is what I struggled with. Like, this was always on my mind, these three topics. The only thing that's honestly left off this list, which is so funny and ironic, was back when I used to be on YouTube. Well, I'm still on YouTube, but back when when I first was beginning, the beginning stages of what is now GSL. I just kind of got on YouTube and was like, this is what I think about all the time: God, sex, and my career. That's what I was saying. And so, and I say it's ironic because I do spend a lot of time talking to entrepreneurs and people such as you, and it still is God, sex, and my career, if that makes any sense, And so, that's the funny thing for me, where to me it wasn't that foreign. It was like, these are things I think about. The only thing that was missing off this list is career, and I had to separate sex and love. And I just said that, because I see that they're separate, and I understand. Because in my mind back in the day, they were both together. You know what I mean? It was more like I was thinking about, when I said it on YouTube, I was thinking about romance, marriage, because I was single at the time, struggling. Yeah. The whole thing. Because I wrote a book about it. But going through my journey and everything like that, and it was, those two things were together in my mind. But I guess over the years, as I matured and whatnot, I ended up separating them and calling the show that. But yeah, I mean, I found myself like, I think, I don't know how to say it. Like I said before, feeling like I have to defend the name, but it's not just that. It's just because I want people to get it. Like, I want people to not be afraid. Like, I feel like people feel like these things are just so taboo, and it's like weird, I guess, for other people to see them together. And I'm like, well, it's not that weird to me, I guess maybe because I break it down to the fact that I feel like God created sex, and I feel like, and they say that, and the Bible says God is love. So to me, they're all, it's not that taboo or form, but people still kind of be like, ooh, you talk about, and then I have to explain, like, okay, look, so this is why, But anyway, so what I'm saying is, I'm glad that you didn't get scared or something. No. And I'm not saying that you're scared.
Well, and let me just respond to that real quick, because there's two things that jump out at me right away. Number one, the beauty of this art form of podcasting is it's not network television. It's not for 25 million people to tune in at 7 p.m. and everybody has to agree that this is the thing, right? That's not what it's for. What it's for is these beautiful and unique ideas to exist. I would argue that there is a huge audience, especially worldwide, of people who think about exactly those three things. I would even take it a step further and say you could have named it like Doritos, video games, and sneakers, and people would maybe even a bigger audience would like that, right? I mean, like, if we're being real. And so, like, on the one hand, this is a medium. It's an art form that celebrates uniqueness. And so certainly there's people that are at home right now or driving in their car or sitting in an office, and they're hearing these words going, I come for miracle. I come because I have those questions. I mean, my show is called Spear and Clover, and it's based on this logo, right? And no one in the world, we'll talk about it, nobody in the world knows what it means. And I had a podcast coach tell me that I shouldn't name it that. And I was like, look, this is going to be on my tombstone. Nobody knew what a Nike swoosh was before they made it what it is. Nobody knew what da-da-da was before Kleenex was before they made Kleenex. Nobody knew what GSL was before you. And then the second thing that I would say is, I want you to imagine if you were in a room, like a boardroom, with other successful entrepreneurs, and they all went to Harvard, and they all have business degrees, and they all make all this money, and you're in the room with them talking about God, sex, and love. You would feel like you were less than. But I'm telling you, Miracle, in that room, you're the interesting person. because you're not like them, because you didn't do exactly the same things that everybody tries to do to become successful. And so frankly, the older that I've gotten and the more that I've seen as an entrepreneur and as like a person in this type of world, the more I realize, like, celebrate your differences, and like how much of that feeling is you sort of second guessing your own instinct, which is the most beautiful thing that we can bring to this art form. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Now I know you're a theater major.
Goodness gracious. Like, no, that really touched my heart, because I not to say I feel like I've done too much at this point to like change the name, but I can't lie and say that it hasn't crossed my mind. But there's nothing else I would even think about. Like, I haven't even pondered the idea of, well, what else would it be? Because I just, again, I mean, it's my story, it's my testimony. You know, again, it's literally what I thought about, and it flowed. I never second guessed it. I don't think it just started to sound weird. I guess once I launched it publicly to everybody, the first time it sounded weird was when my niece said it, and she was like 8 at the time, and I was like, I guess it's weird when a kid says it, huh?
Yeah, I get that. But we need a space for adults to talk, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but see, I guess because I do the daily inspiration but it's its own thing. That's my thing. I feel like now it's become just so much more than the original idea. That's the other thing as well. But who knows, man? I don't know. But what I'm saying is, thank you for that. I appreciate it. It's like confirmation to keep going and do what I'm doing and whatnot. And
keep going.
Yeah, so look, you don't get me boohooing. I don't know, you might, because sometimes GSL people get me boohooing on here. I don't know, but no, I do appreciate that, and it's confirmation for me to not second guess myself. So I appreciate that.
Yeah,
look, coaching. This guy, we don't get information about that, but let's hear about Spear and Clover, because
sure,
that's a really unique tattoo, and
yes, I'm not sure how your listeners will feel about that, but if you're watching the video, I have a tattoo on my forearm. It's of a Spartan spear and an infinite loop of rope, and I call that symbol Spear and Clover. And the Spear and Clover is the name of my company. It's the name of my podcast. It's the name of my coaching business. But years before it was that, it's a story, and this tattoo existed before it was ever an idea for a business. This is just a personal symbol, kind of like Prince, right? It's a personal symbol. And so, like your husband probably does, I go on ruck marches. It's a way for me to, you know what a ruck march is? You put a heavy backpack on and you go out walking, right? Okay. It's similar to running, but it's slower, so I like it. So once a week, I typically will go for a ruck march with my dogs, like hiking, right? And I have 2 Australian Shepherd dogs, and I live in the Indiana Dunes. So I'm rucking through the sand and the hills and the woods and the forest and the beach. We're right here on Lake Michigan. And one day I was doing an 11-mile ruck with a 40-pound pack on my back and a 40-pound log on my shoulder, and I wouldn't put the log down for the whole time. And the dogs, and so I'm moving, I'm hoofing, I'm military mindset, working hard towards my goal as hard as I can, focused. And the dogs are having the time of their life. They're running out into the woods and they're playing, and then they come back and they check on me. Then they're running out into the woods and they're playing, and they come back and they check on me. And it just occurred to me, you know, if I'm doing 11 miles, they're doing 22 easy, right? They're doing at least 2 to 1, and they're having the time of their life. Couldn't be more happy. And it just occurred to me in that moment, Miracle, that that's how I go through life when I'm at my best. Is not just to be super laser focused on my goals ahead of me, but also to take time to meet new people, to have fun, to be gregarious and friendly and outgoing and try new things and have hobbies. And so Spear and Clover to me represents the lifestyle, you know, particularly for entrepreneurs, but really for anybody, of somebody who's willing to like put it all on the line and really work hard towards their goals, but remembers to enjoy life while they're doing it along the way. And so that's what Spear and Clover stands for.
It sounds like me.
You got a lot of clover, I can tell you that.
Oh, thank you. You know? Yeah, man. I've been trying my best to enjoy moments. You know what I mean? I think I'm seeing more now that I'm a mom and stuff like that too. It's like, you know, I got a 4-year-old now and stuff. Thank you. Oh. And I'm like, okay, so now I see I have to take time to unwind. That's what I call it. I'm like, sometimes mommy just has to close the door and everybody else be out there, and I gotta be, you know, some peace and quiet for a little while, or just all those different type of things. And I've been talking to my husband about this as well. I'm like, okay, I know we got our goals, and I know we got things that we're going to do, and I know that we're trying to, you know, get to another level and all this different type of stuff, but we still have to take time while we have it, I feel, to have fun. We gotta do more family activities or whatever the case is. I feel like all of that stuff is important. I think, I guess when we think about the whole life and death situation, I think my point of view is a little bit, I don't know if it's that unique, but I mean, I did unfortunately start life without my father because he passed before I was born. So my mother, they were only married for like maybe like a year or so, and then they conceived me. And then that year that I was born, he like a few months before I was born, he passed by a heart attack and whatnot. And so for me, although I never did get a chance to meet him and everything like that, I mean, I guess it's like in the back of my mind that life is, short and everything. And so I don't want to like live with regrets, or I don't want to like take time for granted either, and stuff like that. And so I think I've been very intentional about like going for goals and like trying to do as much as I can. Like I may not have traveled, so I guess that's one thing that I'm, a little bit jealous of you military people.
Come on.
Because I haven't gotten.
Yeah, they don't charge you for the ticket. They charge you in other ways.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But I want to add to that we have the same story. My biological father passed away before I was, I think, 1. So very similar. And separately, nobody on their deathbed wishes they spent more time with their money. So it's like, just nobody ever. That's just not something that ever happens. And so I think our success is measured by our memories in our children and our families. And if they want to spend time with us, and if they can think back on the times that we spent with them. And so, I think unfortunately, people get overcome by this desire to find financial success. And I certainly have found some financial success and certainly want to find more, but it doesn't have to be at the peril of your personal success and your familial success.
Exactly. I think I had to definitely come to terms about success and what does that mean for me? Because like, as an actor, of course, what do you think? People want to get, the Oscars and the da-da-da, and I just never was more so about that. I think my thing was like, I just want to perform for a living. I want to be able to, use my gifts on X, Y, and Z, and whether that takes me to the highest level or not, or according to our standards, or if I'm able to actually live, be an actor for a living, or whatever the case is, or, maybe at some point I think I get a lot of joy from doing this. I feel like this is just producing my own show, or shows really, because all of these different concepts are like their own thing, and so I have different goals and aspirations and whatnot as well. Like I said, travel is definitely one as well that I would love to get out of the country, is what I'm saying. I've done some. I haven't been in Indiana yet either, so I guess I mean, no, you're not in Indiana.
I'm in Indiana. Yeah, if you guys are ever driving through, let me know. We'll show you the dunes.
Okay.
Yeah. We're right off Lake Michigan.
I guess when you said Chicago, I'm just sitting here thinking that it's so
Chicago's kind of near Indiana's border, and I'm kind of near Indiana's border. Our neighbor is Gary, Indiana, so it's all kind of connected. Yeah.
See, I have not been on that like anywhere in that area. Yeah. Well, Philly, but that's not near.
That's East Coast, yeah.
That's still New York-ish. Yeah. So yeah, I've been to New York. I've been to
I lived in Augusta for a couple years.
You were in Alaska?
Augusta. No, I would have much rather been in Alaska. No, I was in Augusta, Georgia, which that was a whole story of its own. I would have much rather been in Atlanta. Yeah, we got carjacked our first night out off base. Yep.
What?
Yep.
Military people?
Oh yeah. We got carjacked not by military people, but we were military people. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm saying you as military people got carjacked.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We were young and bright-eyed and full of something in vinegar, and they decided to take our car.
Hey, nah,
I got Augusta stories. Miracle.
Hey, look, I was by the grace of God, I walked around New York and I was all right. Like, no, my first time getting on the plane, I went to New York and I was by myself and everything, but I didn't really do too much traveling. Like I went and did my audition. I met somebody there. They showed me around Times Square, and then I went back to the hotel because I didn't do much. And then in a full circle kind of way, years later, I ended up being in this movie, and they brought me up to New York, whatever. And I had to do so much walking by myself. And so like at some point I was pregnant and I was walking by myself. And so it was like all the stuff that I was so insecure about that first flight. Was like,
Yeah.
well, if I'm
Yeah.
going to get the set, I gotta get I gotta get on the subway, and
Yeah.
and I might have to be by myself and all this type of stuff. So I guess the more you do something, the more it gets. But
Yeah.
anyway, traveling, yeah, I want to get on, maybe a boat or a plane or go overseas. So okay, random question, and then
Yeah.
I'll let you go because I know you probably got more important things to do.
Oh, come on.
So where all have you been in regards to your travels and stuff? Is that
Well, yeah, let's see. The first place I ever went, my family and I went to Cancun, Mexico, which was my first time out of the country. I've been in a lot of places in the United States, mostly kind of all over the United States. I've been to Hawaii. My wife and I went to Hawaii. We took our team to Hawaii one year for the gym as a reward. I've lived in Germany. I've lived in Iraq. I've been to Kuwait. When I lived in Germany, we went to most of the Central European countries. So that's like Amsterdam's, the Netherlands, Brussels, France, Spain, Greece, England. I've been to Thailand. That was so much fun. And I've been to
Thailand.
What's
Is
that?
great. My
Thailand
husband
is
talks
great.
about Thailand too.
I went to Thailand with my now wife. We were dating at the time. And I went with like 12 people. And so when you have that many people, you can rent these unbelievable like mansions, and it's like $50 a person or something. It's crazy affordable. But if you go with just two people, it's a little bit, it's still cheap, but it's a little bit more. But when we would have a cook in the place, we would have like a bus that would take us around. I mean, it was pretty cool. And you can do that if you can get it together with a group of people. My sister was in the Peace Corps in Costa Rica, so I got to visit South America and see Costa Rica. I did the same when she got out. She met us down in Peru, and we went and hiked to Machu Picchu. And then I've been to the Dominican Republic, I think twice, and Mexico a couple more times. But yeah, quite a bit of travel when I was younger. And it's one of those things now where I don't feel as much of pull to go to see the world yet, but I can see I have a daughter that's about 18 months old. And I'm starting to get the itch to show her the world and see the world through her eyes. And so I think that's where the next leg of my journeys will come.
Oh, that sounds amazing. Well, they say, man, you're definitely well traveled. I think the furthest out of the country, and this is not even out of the country, but Bahamas.
Oh, that's great. The Bahamas is out of the country. Yeah, that's that's
that's the farthest out. I mean, everything else has been mainland for me. But I mean, one day that's one of my goals and stuff like
Beautiful.
that. I was going to sit here and ask you something else. Well, no,
come get it. I'm not in a rush. What do you got?
I was trying to think. No, you were saying, you were saying you're also part Native American, correct?
Not by blood. Because like I mentioned before, I share your story with my biological father passed. So my father who raised me, who I consider my dad, is part Native American. Yeah, so my sisters are both part. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Got
you. I was gonna say, how do you feel? I know we just had Thanksgiving, and it's all controversial.
Not to me. I can talk about that. I was just thinking about this the other day. I think it's interesting that we live in a time where every element of a person or a group of people or a happening is scrutinized from the moment they were born to the moment they died. Columbus is a really good example. The Native Americans and Pilgrims is a good example. And that's not to say that I'm in any way endorsing like taking over Native Americans' land or any of that stuff. But let's use Columbus as an example. Terrible, terrible stuff that this guy did. That being said, he still is a big part of our history. The thing he did, the one thing that he did, right, which is, and I'm talking out the side of my head here. I don't have any facts or anything, but it occurred to me that another one, Martin Luther King, has been thrown under the bus over the last few years in a way that this is a better example. This is someone who unequivocally in modern times, we have video evidence and records, and there are people alive today that marched with him or benefited from the words that he said. And we still are throwing him under the bus because of things that he did in his personal life that to me, they don't have anything to do with what we're celebrating. Mm-hmm. No human being is worthy of celebration in their whole life, right? Mm-hmm. and we can go towards God with that conversation, right? But no one human, like I'm not perfect, you're not perfect. But if I went and established something that changed the world or the course of a people forever, well, then maybe there's a holiday for that. The holiday isn't about the entirety of my life and existence because no human being is perfect. And so for me, Thanksgiving's great. It's a celebration of a terrible winter where two people came together and broke bread. And to me, it's that idea and that event, not the entirety of the history of those two people and what may or may not have come before or after. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. It makes sense to me. And I think, man, like you said, it just seems like either we're trying to find things to be upset about or rewriting history. That's another thing as well. It's like, I mean, and not to say that you can't, I understand we got to remember, what happened and this, that, and the other, so then we don't forget and don't, X, Y, and Z. But at the same time, I think there is something to be said for like moving forward, and remembering, right? Not making same mistakes, but moving forward and doing better and because I feel like when it comes to ancestors and everything like that, the people that lived before us, they lived their time, they got us to where we are. And let's get the next generation to where, I just feel like it needs to be a continuation and whatnot. So I know that's a whole nother conversation. We could probably go.
We could, yeah. I would think we would probably, from the sounds of it, agree on more than we disagree. But that's okay too. I mean, you and I are just two people in 2022, sitting in our offices or living rooms or wherever you're at. I'm in a little spare office that we've got. And we're just having a conversation. I'll tell you what we're not. We're not the Pilgrims, and we're not Columbus, and neither of us is Martin Luther King. So it's one of those things where it's like, the world does have to go on. We should learn from our experiences and our past. But certainly, you didn't do anything to the Native Americans, and I didn't discover America on the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. So I don't know. These are complex topics that people have a lot more emotional weight to than I do. But I will say that the people that I typically agree with are those that are kind-spirited and giving and have a focus on improving the world into the future rather than weighing and measuring the pain of the past.
That's a mic drop right there. I'm going to let that be. I'm going to let that be. Please share with the people, where can we find you, your businesses, and everything like that?
Well, the first thing I want you guys to do, if you're still listening to this, you're a big fan of Miracle Sims. So go find her on Instagram, go find her podcast page, like it, subscribe to it, and share it with somebody that you know, because that is the absolute best way for her to be able to grow her vision and be able to keep doing what she loves. And tell her how much you love her name. She needs a little bit of moral support. Then, if you have any energy left, then you can go to www.spearandclover.com. You can check out, I have some free stuff for entrepreneurs there. You can follow me on Instagram. I'm at Jason Skeesick, Skeesick, or at Spear and Clover. So Instagram is my platform of choice. I'm also on YouTube and it's kind of everywhere. But I would love to hear from you. If there's anything you want to run by me, or if you want to hop on and have a strategy call, we can do that. This is where I get energy, so I could do this every hour of the day that I open myself up to work.
Mr. Jason, I truly, truly enjoyed this conversation. You're welcome back anytime.
Oh, thank you, Miracle. I appreciate it.
Miracle Sims, let's go.
Thank you so much for watching Guys, Sex, and Love. And thank you to Mr. Jason Skeesick for joining us tonight and blessing me with so many kind words and some words of wisdom as well. I hope that you all enjoyed it. Check out his endeavors and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Have a good night.